Only mode.
Good morning, folks. This is Shane with Progression Technologies, and we'll just be starting here in just a couple minutes. If you can hear me all right, if you would please hit the raise your hand button on your control panel, I'd appreciate it, just so I know that everybody can hear me. Yeah. All right, folks, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, if you can hear me okay, if you would just hit your raise your hand button there on the webinar control panel, just to let me know you're good to go. Thank you. Perfect. All right. So what we're going to talk about is weldments and just some of the things we can do with the weldment tool. I think it's probably one of the most underutilized tools in SolidWorks. I've used it for about 12 years now, and in these last two releases, SolidWorks has really come a long way in giving us the tools we need in weldments. It's not quite there, but getting closer. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to hit what's new in Weldments 2015 first, because there's some pretty exciting things there. Then we're going to look at some other modeling tips and tricks in Weldments that are available pretty much in all the previous versions, certainly 13, 14, and 15. And then if we have time, I'm going to tease you with weldment costing, which came out in or was added here in 2015. Great time saver for you, and I think a lot of you will like it. All right, so let's get started. We're going to just bounce back and forth between the slide and SolidWorks itself. I am going to work in 2015. If it's a feature that only exists in 2015, I'll let you know on that. And of course, these first few are definitely going to be 2015 only items. So let's start off. We're going to hit the start off with the automatic update of Cutlass. Really great one here. In the past, you've always had to come in here and click this update button, but now you can select right here, and it will automatically keep that cut list up to date for you. Great time saver there for you, and lets you know you're not going to get out of sync with things. Really like that one. And I think while we're here, we're going to go ahead and show you another one because you can see it, and that's the cut list descriptions actually letting you know what's in that cut list. So there's no more just having to scroll down through and look at each individual folder to find what you're looking for. Really nice enhancement there. Again, speeds things up. And just to give you an idea of where that's at, what we've done is in 2015, Weldments got its own item under Document Properties, and right here is where all this is. And so we can actually come in here, and if you really like to punish yourself, you can click it and go ahead and go back to the generic cut list item number folder names. But you know, it's always nice to have new toys, so we'll turn that one back on. The other ones here, the automatic update cut lists that you're used to, and then also the create derived configurations, the as welded, as machined, that's been there for a while, but it got moved now so that it's here on its own tab. So pretty nice there, pretty nice. So let's go ahead and turn that back on. I like to keep that there so I know where I'm going. Yeah. All right, so really nice enhancements there as far as the update and naming of these folders. We really like that. All right, let's scroll down here and really get into the meat of it here a little bit. Let's talk about the actual cutlet, or the structural members themselves. Another big one that got added this year is the ability to visualize groups. In the past, you would click it and it would highlight the actual sketch lines, but not necessarily the members for you. So now we get a little better interaction there with which members are getting highlighted, so we know exactly what belongs to that group now. The other great thing that's gotten added to that is the corner groups. And if we come in here and look at this corner, for instance, we're given the trim order. Well, the first thing you probably just noticed is it's non-modal now. So I can go ahead and zoom into that corner that I'm looking at now without having to exit the trim tool, the corner treatment tool. So that's nice. You know, in the past, the thing was you would pick the corner you wanted, the treatment tool would come up, and then you couldn't see the corner and see what you're doing. So now you can zoom right in there, change the trim order, and actually see exactly what's going to happen and what kind of strangeness you're developing there. So another great tool here for us. So for you to look at there. Another big one that we've gotten this year finally is gussets. And again, another boring item. The gusset never won the war, but they have added some really nice abilities in gussets. One of the things we can now do is add a gusset across a gap. So we've got here a gap here between our two surfaces to put this in. So if we come up here to our gusset, we can now go ahead, select those two faces, and you can see right there, it goes ahead, puts our gusset in. Let's go ahead and make that gusset a little bit bigger. So that's kind of nice. And we're adding it between a body and a structural member. Really nice enhancement there. The other big one now also that you're going to like, for those of you who do a lot of pipe work, is we can now gusset between round structural members. So here we come in. You can see it already populated with the last gusset. And the other nice thing is we can actually change the orientation of the gusset with our arrow here. So it gives you a little more flexibility there when you want to move that gusset around. Pretty cool tool. We can also do it right here between a square member and a round tube. The only difference is we've got to give it a direction on this one. So we just come in here, we select an edge, and there it goes. It populates for you. as soon as you give that edge. And again, if we really wanted it to be on the underside here, we just click the arrow and it goes ahead and flips it over for us really nicely. So really good enhancements to gussets and our ability to work with those. Another big one that I think folks are going to like is the enhancement to end caps and the ability to put them inside. If we come in here to our end cap, we'll select our face. We'll tell it we want it to be internal. And let's go ahead. We have a new option here, this depth. Let's go ahead and make it 20 mil deep. And then let's go ahead and give it a corner treatment and clean it up. So there you can see we got a good preview of what we're going to have. Click OK. But the other really nice enhancement on this is if we come in here and we go ahead and let's go ahead and give this a 5. Come on. If we go ahead and section that. The other really good thing that they did for us on this one is if you get normal to this, you'll see that our end cap is cut normal too. So no, you don't have to go ahead and do that yourself anymore, or somehow fake it in there for the shop so the shop doesn't think they've got to cut these edges at some weird angle to slide that cap in there. It's already going to go ahead and put it in there with normal 2 cuts for you. So another really nice one that I think people are going to really like and enjoy as time goes on with that one. So the other nice thing that we've got is a whole bunch of improvements to weld beads now. And when we talk in costing and some of these other things, you're going to see the weld bead, again, another tool that's been there. Some folks use it. It's a tool that that people like, but aren't really sure how much they could be using it. Well, now they've really improved the weld bead tool, and here you can see we're going to go ahead and select some paths, and by selecting path, it actually lets us put that weld bead across the gaps there. It no longer gives us an invalid entry there. But we can also come in here and select geometry and come down. Okay. Yeah. Well, so let's get that weld back in there though. Okay. Click OK. A little big maybe. The other thing we can do now is select, and it'll actually pull across gaps. So if we select our face and our other face, you can see it went ahead and put our weld beads all the way across there for us. So another great little tool. It's got our weld paths in there. So really nice tool there. The great thing with it now is we also have the ability to follow just about any path. So for those of you who maybe come in and do some hard surfacing and want to show that weld bead there, well, now we have the ability to go ahead, click our weld bead, select the path, and actually just go with that sketch. And we can come in and we can define our symbol, surfacing. Click OK. And we get our symbol and our weld size there. So pretty nice little enhancements there with the weld paths. We can also see up here, when we come up here to our weld folder, they're being added in there just fine. And we also, in the weld folder, because again, we want to minimize the load on the system at times. So we've added the ability to suspend automatic rebuild of the welds. So it's adding them, but it won't actually rebuild the welds if we change this geometry until we go in and tell it to. And we can manually select rebuild. So that's another one for, again, reducing some of the load on the system while we're actively modeling, but still giving you the options you want to drive with. So pretty cool tools there. We really like that. Let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and Control Q. And now I want to sneak peek you to the to a couple additions here. So we had our gussets get added here, and one of the things that we'd like is for our gussets to have a usable description for us. You can see properties here. We get our bounding boxes. We've got this description in here. Really nice descriptions there. Yeah, but here we don't have anything yet. So yeah, let's go ahead and there it goes. So now it went ahead and rebuilt that for us. Yeah. And added those in for us. So, again, having that description, the information we want right there. Another great enhancement has to do with quantities and in the cut list. This one can be kind of a good and a bad. You have to know what you're looking at. But if we come in now, on these structural members, we're now given a total length. And so great tool, really nice finally to have that total length so we aren't having to try to either add it up ourselves, create a BOM with equations in it that we bring it over. The only thing is it's going to populate, and we'll look at this again here in a minute, along in the drawing across all those same items. You can see here it's that total length shows up on all the tubing and rectangular tubing here. So it is something that you have to recognize that it is truly the total length for that structural member, not just for that particular group of it or that particular item. And we'll look at that in the drawing. Let's see, Weldments. The last one is there are some of you still out there that do have to do weldments as welded assemblies, and depending on your setup now, that we have come up with a new tool for you there. The save bodies or command has gotten some great enhancements this year, in that we can add the Cutlass properties. Hold on. There we go, save bodies. No. Sorry. Yeah. Cut list. Okay. Yeah. Cancel. And then it brings all those over with us for you now. So you have all your same cut list items still there. They're linked to the parent, and so you've got to keep that parent active while you do it. So that way, anything you do with the parent part is going to go ahead and populate down into the that new saved body. So really good enhancement there. So I think those are some of the ones that we wanted to hit there and look at with you. I want to jump over now. Let's go look at some other enhancements that work out really well, some underrated tools. And let's just jump. Let's take a look at, let's go here. Nice little table. And so one of the things, I'll just jump here real quick. So some of the things I want to look at here is 2D versus 3D. You know, a lot of companies want to tell you how to do your sketching. You know, obviously a table that we were just looking at, you could do that as a 3D sketch, and it would look really cool. But then again, not everybody's comfortable dealing with 3D sketches. So, you know, maybe that's not always the way to go. The other thing is modeling with 2D sketches and tying things to geometry and assembling your model, your weldment, the same way it's going to be in the field, has some great power as far as being able to visualize what's going to go on. And we're going to look at all these in just shortly. But also planning your planes. If you want to model off of some planes and sketch on planes, again, thinking about the construction of it and how it's done. Working from your constraints. A lot of times we see people who do their sketch and they always put their bodies on the center of it. Well, you may not know what your material is going to be, so sometimes, but you generally will know what your envelope is. You're allowed, it's allowed to be this big, or you know, not to exceed these dimensions in any way. So working from that envelope can be really helpful. One I harp on a lot: use relations where you can. You know, don't dimension till you have to. Reference sketches are your friends. Don't be afraid to throw an extra sketch in there to drive off of. We all know the value of formulas. Take a little time to figure out where you can use formulas, drive that automation through your model. And finally, mirrors and patterns are your best friends. And when you're in a weldment, remember you're going to be mirroring bodies, not features. So let's go ahead and jump back to SolidWorks. And again, I'm in 2015, but what we're discussing now can work in all the way back to 2013 with no problem. So, so I did a little stair unit here, quick painless stair unit, but I wanted to keep things automated where I could. So if we come in here and edit this sketch, you can see here we've got some dimensions that are linked here to drive our model. Part of that is we want to keep our slope going. So if we come in here and we make this bigger, we gain some steps here. So we'll go ahead and let's go ahead and make sure this is big enough that when we get to it, we'll really know we've changed things. So we'll click OK and exit our sketch. So we've got a really tall stair now, and so now we've got our structural members in here, and again, we're going to roll down to our mirror, and we're going to mirror those. And again, you know, we have a plane here that we started working off of, and if we look here, it's tied to the right plane and just off of it. And what we did there is, again, working from the constraints, they told us that the inside dimension on these had to be 24 inches. So what we did is just offset that plane 12 inches for half that distance, and our structural member is to the outside of that plane. So we know we're going to be at 24 inches no matter what now on the inside of it. A couple other ways we could have laid out those planes. I just happen to like keeping my right plane or my front plane, depending on where I'm sketching. I like to keep it centered and have one of those standard planes centered. We all have our little idiosyncrasies, and that's mine. So we'll go ahead and mirror that. Next thing we're going to do is a 3D sketch. Now, I know I just said, you know, 3D sketches are not always your best friend, but if we look, I actually tied a lot of my 3D sketch here to either the frame members, like the center lines, center point of the ends of that face right there. So I linked them to geometry. So it's a quick, easy way to link that 3D sketch that most people can figure out. If we come in here, we can turn on our relations, and actually see what's linked. So, you know, even for a new drafter, somebody new to SolidWorks, you can bring them in, and that's usually something that they can, once you show them how to turn the view relations on, they can handle. On this particular, these particular lines, I went ahead and I went ahead and tied them to the endpoints of a line sketch that I had in my original sketch 1. So, you know, again, trying to link existing sketches and geometry to what we're doing. And let me edit sketch. Let's go ahead and make this really big again. Click OK. All right, so yeah, so you can see here I went ahead and tied that 3D sketch to parts of my previous sketch. So it's a 3D sketch, but I'm not having to worry about X, Y, Z, which plane am I in, all that, because I'm tying it to usable geometry. Again, we'll roll forward and put in our structural members there. Again, you can see our structural members nowhere near just being on center. Here we're to the side. Here they're actually top center. You know, we put those in the location that's appropriate for maintaining the relations we want. All right, so now we're going to come down here. We'll create a little boss extrude. So we went ahead and we added about 40 inches of height to our ladder. Now we'll come down here to our linear pattern, and our linear pattern went ahead and updated for us. And again, with our linear pattern, if we look at it, you know, we're mirroring bodies or patterning bodies, and we've driven some sketches. We've linked these to other items, and sketches are a little tricky for that, or linear patterns are a little tricky for that. The way you do that with a linear pattern is you double click it until you get your instance count and your pattern distance here, and then you can go ahead and bring it up in a normal box that you're used to. Once the box is up, it's non-modal. It's not tied to anything now. So now we can come back here. You can see I needed that hypotenuse, and so I just go ahead and pop it into that initial sketch so I have a place to reference it later and tie it to this distance on these steps. So, and that way they stay linked. And the same thing for your instant count. Let's go ahead. We'll double click the sketch again. We'll bring up the instant count. And here we're actually using an integer function and linking it to our height and the depth of the steps, and to generate this pattern. And you can see we did -1 because we're pulling off of our top step. So so like I said, patterns, linking patterns can be a little tricky at times, but you can access and add equations to patterns. Pretty slick tool there. And then finally, we're going to roll down. Let's put a little deck on it, and we've got our deck. Again, you know, if we click on this sketch, you'll see our dimensions here grayed out because they're driven. You know, I've just linked it to existing geometry, so I don't have to do anything with them. They just stay driven all the time. So something you really want to look at there. Now I do want to come back to one other item here. So right now, if we look at those steps and our platform, if we go in here, we don't have any properties. No description, no bounding box or anything. And you know, we can sure create that, but it's kind of a lot of work. One of the slick ways to do that is to come right down here. We'll right click on the folder and select create bounding box. And now we're all done. We come in here now and we've got all the information we want to have right there. We've got a width, length, and now we've got our description. Everything's pulled in for us. Really sweet tool there. So again, if it went too fast for you, because I think this is one that people miss or forget about, create bounding box, hit that, and now we've got our description and everything ready to go for our cut list. So really sweet tool there that I really think gets ignored a lot. So now let's jump over real quick, because I did want to look at some drawings. Let's jump here to sheet 1. And maybe, hey. All right. So first thing, so the top one is the cut list. This is a cut list that adds the total length column. And I am teasing you. No, SolidWorks still won't group the items for you and order them now. Again, OCD behavior. I like them grouped and I like them sorted by length. So something that I add. Now, it brought our length in for structural members just fine. And you can see here in this total length, this is what I was talking about earlier, it brings it in for everything. So not the most ideal item there. But what's missing is plate, and we have 2 sheet metal components also, and it doesn't bring anything in for those. So you know, it is kind of a tease. But what I did down here, and this is kind of one of the ways we were doing it, but now it's gotten a bit easier. So what I've done is inserted a bill of materials with a detailed cut list here. And now I've got my length for my various structural members. I've got total length on those. And then I also have now my plate square inch for all of my plate and my 2 sheet items. I still have to come in and manually put in a name for my sheet, the description there for the sheet metal, but I can automatically bring in the bounding box dimensions to get a total on that one. And so I'll unhide what I've got here. So you can see here I brought in a bounding box, and that populated for my 2 sheet metals. And then I brought in those calculated bounding box dimensions and created a calculated field for those. So now I've got my square inches for the for my various plates and gussets. And then all I had to do was go ahead and add one more column where I basically gave it and I'll go ahead and show you here, an if-then statement. Let's see if we can, let me get that to over here to where we can see it better. So we use an if statement basically saying if the bounding box has a number, show it, otherwise show plate area for us. And so that's what we've done here with this other column. And so that gets us so that gets us our plate square inch column that we're with the contents we want. So you know, so again, tremendous improvement. Really like a lot of the enhancements to that. The fact that we now have you know, if we insert a column here, you know, we now have all of these Cutlass properties that we can use that we never had before. So very cool tool. All right. All right, I'm going long, and I may have to lose a few of you, but I do want to just really quick, Control Q. I'm going to jump over back over to our table. Let's go to the table. And I want to look at the costing, just because it is such a awesome tool. Let's let it go ahead and refresh. And I will tell you in full disclosure that I didn't test this again this morning, and the powers that be told me never do a webinar without testing it first the day of. So let's see if it's going to go for me. Q, and it doesn't want to play. Let's see, what do we got going? Oh, it's refreshing. But the costing now supports multi-body parts. You know, we had machined parts, but now it's also added support for multi-body parts or weldments. And so it can actually come in and look at your sheet metal that's in your weldment and your actual structural members. It'll look at the type of operation you're using to cut these, and once this is done refreshing, we'll take a look at it. So whether you're water jet, flame cutting, laser cutting this plate out, you can let it know, and it'll base the cost on that. Any machining you have on those parts. But the other great thing is, and that's when I mentioned the weld beads earlier, is you can actually input costs for the various weld beads that you use. So it will read those weld beads from your model and insert them into the cost of that item. So it really awesome tool that they've added for weldment costing, and it doesn't really want to play with us today. what I may do is we're going to do a video on that and some of the setup. Of course, those kinds of costs. I've had people say, "Well, so is it based on industry standards?" Well, no, it's shop specific. So there is setup. It's not one of those out of the box, go with it and run kind of things. It is a similar to Toolbox or something where you've got to set up the information there and then go for it. So I think what I'll do, since I've obviously upset SolidWorks, I know this never happens to you folks out there, but is I'll go ahead and let move to the next slide. So I'll go ahead. We'll be posting that on YouTube. You can head over to YouTube and Progression Technologies, and it should be up there in a day or so to take a peek at on that costing. But really good tool for you. Smaller shops, that kind of thing. So. All right. So, any questions? Anybody have anything they want to ask? There is the questions box. Let me show that to you right here that you can type them in. I did just have one about the audio, but I think the audio has begun. Everybody was hearing me earlier. So any questions at all, though, I'd be glad to look at those with you. I'll stay up online here for 5 more minutes or so. We did record the webinar, so if you didn't hear the audio or want to take a peek at it again, it'll be posted also in a couple days for you to take a look at. All right, folks. Just so you see where to type in questions. Again, my name is Shane Colvin here of Progression Technologies. You can reach me here, our 800 number, 877-967-5780, extension 245. But feel free to give us a call, and we can review any of this with you. And also, just a couple heads up, coming up next week, we're going to talk about Exelead. The new product out from Dassault Systems for data management, outstanding tool, enterprise kind of tool. And then after that, we're going to talk a little bit about plastics and some really great enhancements to plastics in the last 2 editions that I think folks are going to like. So tune in for those. Keep an eye out on your email for those. So. All right. So anyway, on that one, if you have any questions, I'll stay here online. Oh, hold on, I got one. Any info on bending weldments? If SolidWorks has always done pretty good. Let's see. When you talk about bending, that's another one where you sometimes do have to come in with some reference sketches for your shops, depending on the shop and what they do. If you're talking about bending things like handrails here, you can show drawings for them. The length that's provided in the cut list is the correct, is the straightened length. And I've done a lot of handrails, and it's generally pretty close. I've had shops who use their own softwares for calculating the stretch and whatnot, and it really comes down to just some shop specific settings or settings to their dies. But a lot of softwares out there now can take the SolidWorks model, or you can save it out as a solid and import it into the bend software, and for the most part it comes up just right on the money. if we scroll here, let's pull this out just a little bit more. Properties. You'll see here that the length of 211 inches. And then when you bring that in to your drawing, it's just a matter of dimensioning it the way your shop prefers to see it. So it won't flat pattern it, but you can give your shop all the dimensions they need. I don't know if that answered your question, Ben. All right. Anything else, gang? All right. Well, if that's got you guys taken care of again, let me just put up the contact info again. Again, if you do have any questions, don't hesitate. My email's there. You can always call the office, extension 245, and I'll be glad to remote in with you and talk Weldments. There's a lot of other things we could have hit, configurable, the configured weldment profiles, and like I said, I will get some info posted on YouTube and on the blog about the weldment costing, because I think for a lot of the smaller shops, that's something that's going to be a huge time saver and really automate things for you. So, all right, folks, I'm going to hang up now, but take it easy, and we'll be talking to you.